Surrender is a really huge part of this journey, and it's about surrendering to life, to how life is appearing to you in this moment. And I can understand that it's difficult to do this when there perhaps is not trust, but I think the way to garner that trust, the way to build upon it, is to just honestly start believing that you do, to create a little journal perhaps of tiny little miracles that happen in your life that sort of prove that the trust, that you can trust in the universe, that there is trust there because these tiny little miracles have occurred. And I definitely had to do that to begin with. I think a lot of my journey was a lot of outward facing things, meditating, journaling. And then it started to become inward facing, so really searching for that seat of awareness. When you go through difficult things in life or difficult periods of time, you can either go with it or resist it. And I really found that resisting things created a lot of pain, created a lot of difficulty, struggle. Whereas when I just surrendered to what was and just allowed it to be, from there I could really reach freedom, reach understanding. I think it's difficult to understand why could this be possibly a good thing that's happening to me. And I do so get that, and I sympathize with that because I was there and I've been there, and I'm watching someone very close to me go through that right now. But through it all, having come, I guess, through the other side, perhaps, I am just so unbelievably more happy and positive about life and about my role in life and about who I am. And things that used to hurt and upset me don't do that. They just don't hurt and upset me so much anymore. And you know what, that is not to say that I won't get tested, because I've said it all now, I probably will get tested. But you've got to welcome that too, because we all came here and asked to awaken. And that's all we're really supposed to do. And of course, I'm not saying that you just give up everything and go sit in a cave for however many years until you awaken. Part of the awakening, I feel, is actually being in the world, because you do get triggered and you do get shaken a little bit by things. You meet people that don't agree with you. You are in situations that make you anxious or upset you. And it's in those moments, that's where the work comes in. That's so much to just sit in the morning and meditate, but there's another thing entirely to then be confronted by something that scares you and to surrender into it. So this happened to me the other day. I was in London and I was waiting to get a train, and I ended up without knowing it, in a sort of rough part of London, because I don't live in London, I live just outside of London. And I was in a McDonald's and because it was morning and I wanted a hash brown. And I was in McDonald's, and it was about 7 in the morning on a Sunday. And I walked into the McDonald's, I paid for my hash browns, I was waiting for them to be made. And then I suddenly became very aware of the fact that A, I was the only girl in this McDonald's, and B, that the people around me seemed quite rough. There was a man, for example, who was sort of laid out across a bench, and he had a black eye. and other sorts of characters like that. And I immediately became very aware of sort of like the fact that I was this young girl with quite nice jewelry on, waiting for my food, and that I wasn't next to the train station. I still had to walk maybe 2 or 3 minutes to get there. And I could feel the fear rising in me. I think one of the brilliant things is when you've been on this path for a while, you start to reframe difficulties. So it used to be that I would be feeling fearful about my situation, about my safety. So I'd start to panic. I'd start to be looking at my watch, hoping that the food would be ready, or perhaps in previous times I would have just left. And I would have been starting to feel so anxious to the point that perhaps I would feel sick because I had made myself so anxious. Anyway, but now what happens is when these difficult things arise, I immediately can now recognize that this is just a false belief system, that the truth of who I am cannot be hurt. My body can be hurt, but not my beingness. My beingness was around before this body was born, and it will be around after it's gone. That will remain, and that is the truth of who I am. It's not the girl standing at McDonald's waiting for a hash brown. So I was able to really think back, and I was particularly nervous about my jewelry, about perhaps somebody wanting it. And in the moment of relaxing back and being aware of my fear in this moment, I had a realization or a sort of download perhaps of something that Byron Katie had said in her book, that, you know, if somebody needs something, then they must need it more than me. That my jewelry is not me, it's not my safety, it's not anything to me. And if someone were to come up to me and say, give me your jewelry, I would give it because they must need that jewelry more than I need it. And I must pray and know in that that's what they need in this moment. And that I will be okay if I have the jewelry or don't have the jewelry. The jewelry isn't anything of me. And also, I guess from another point of view, if it's between being hurt and giving someone my jewelry, then you would of course give it. But the fact that it washed over me, this understanding that, well, they will need that more than me. I'm okay if I don't have this jewelry. It's fine to me if I don't have it. But that person, you know, I mean, they might need it way more than I do. And so I just surrendered. I surrendered into the fear. Instead of being resistant to it and fighting it, I just stepped back and surrendered into it and allowed it to just be as it was. And I felt peace. And my hash brown arrived, and I caught my train. And it was all fine. But had I fought that fear, had I believed in the fear, I would have been anxious, scared. I wouldn't have been in peace. But to allow that fear to be there, recognize it and go, oh, hello, you're back again. And to sort of talk with it. It doesn't matter if we lose the necklace or the earrings. It's okay. It's difficult to let go of all the things that we think are real. I really understand that. But it all starts with right now. And it starts with these little moments. And it starts by just changing these slight behaviors. And perhaps you won't be able to do it every single time. But if you do it more often than not, it will become the new habit, the new norm. And from there, things can really accelerate. Once I started to see that my thoughts and my beliefs were just not the truth anymore, that I was the awareness of them always, and that awareness was peaceful and free and joyful, and that also that peacefulness could not be harmed, in any way, when I started seeing that and I started going into that more and more, the process accelerated. I could see the trust. I could see the understanding behind it all far better than I ever had before. We are so lucky to be having all of these amazing opportunities to awaken. It's like the universe is going, come on, come on. Everybody's rooting for us. Everybody's rooting for you. Everybody wants you to be happy. Life really is that simple, that easy. And when you let go and you surrender into these hurt places, these dark places, and you bring them, you shine the light of your awareness on it, it breaks it down and it shifts it. You're not meant to suffer. You're not meant to worry. You're not meant to die in the sense that humans think we should die. You're meant to be the light. You're meant to be the wonderment of the world, and we're so lucky.